Welcome to the Economist in Your Ear podcast. If you were advising the CEO of a company poised to go public for $2 trillion and your decisions were actively shaping the future of artificial intelligence, wouldn't you want people to know who you are? Or would you do absolutely everything in your power to erase your digital footprint?
Well, it's sort of the ultimate modern paradox, right? In this era where, literally every single tech founder is aggressively trying to build a personal brand, choosing total engineered invisibility it's almost more conspicuous.
Right, yeah. It signals a completely different kind of power.
Exactly. It really does.
And, well, that deliberate absence is exactly what we're exploring today. We're looking at a highly revealing Wall Street Journal investigation published under the exact headline, "Even Claude is in the dark," about Dario Amodei's wife and her influence at Anthropic. I want you listening right now to just picture this scenario. Anthropic is, one of the most powerful AI companies on the planet. Their flagship chatbot, Claude, is arguably the most sophisticated information retrieval system ever built.
Yeah, absolutely.
But if you ask Claude who its own CEO, Dario Amodei, is married to, it replies that his marital status doesn't seem to be clearly confirmed.
Which is just, it's astonishing when you think about the sheer volume of training data Claude actually processes. It scrapes these vast swaths of the internet, yet it has this very specific blind spot regarding the spouse of its own creator.
Yeah. And it's not just Claude. If you go to Google right now and do an image search for Dario Amodei's wife, the search algorithm gets so confused by the lack of data that it just returns a picture of his sister, Daniela.
Oh, wow.
I know. Up until this summer, his Wikipedia page didn't even mention he was married, and it still doesn't name her. The journal reports deliberate efforts to scrub her online footprint. But, how does someone actually do that in today's world? You don't just ask Google nicely to forget you?
No, you definitely don't. Achieving that level of digital invisibility in 2026, it requires sophisticated mechanics. You are looking at a combination of aggressive SEO displacement.
Like flooding the zone.
Exactly, yeah. Flooding the zone with irrelevant information to push target data down, alongside continuous legal takedown requests, and even, monitoring Wikipedia via proxy IP addresses to revert edits the absolute moment her name is added.
That sounds exhausting.
It is a full-time, highly resourced effort just to maintain a void.
And the contrast between that digital void and her physical proximity to absolute world-shaping power is what makes this story so compelling.
Yeah.
We're talking about Cami Clark. But to really understand why her invisibility matters right now, we need to lay out the stakes for Anthropic.
Yeah.
Because you mentioned earlier, this is a company hurtling toward an IPO that could top $2 trillion.
$2 trillion, yes. And that valuation isn't just based on hype. It's based on the infrastructural nature of their technology. Their tool, Claude Code, is being used by millions of software engineers to essentially write the digital architecture of tomorrow.
Right.
Furthermore, they've developed this highly powerful model called Mythos.
Let me just pause on Mythos for a second, because the reporting notes that it actually rattled the financial markets and prompted the White House to call for federal oversight. What exactly does Mythos do that makes it so disruptive?
Well, Mythos is designed to be exceptionally good at finding and exploiting system vulnerabilities. In the cybersecurity world, we call these zero-day exploits, flaws in software that no one knows about yet.
Okay, so if you have an AI that can autonomously discover those.
Exactly.
Okay.
If it can discover and weaponize these vulnerabilities faster than humans can patch them, you have a tool that could theoretically compromise financial trading algorithms, banking infrastructure, or national security databases.
Wow.
Yeah. That is the mechanism causing the panic. It's why you have a company operating essentially at the level of a nation state in terms of influence.
Which perfectly explains this major political standoff detailed in the reporting. The journal notes that Anthropic clashed directly with the Trump administration because Dario Amodei outright refused to lift restrictions on how the Pentagon could use Claude.
Right, and that principled refusal had massive, immediate consequences. Because Amodei wouldn't compromise on the safety restrictions, the government labeled Anthropic a supply chain risk.
Walk me through what that designation actually means for the business.
It's essentially a federal quarantine. It effectively bars Pentagon partners and major defense contractors from integrating Anthropic's technology into their systems.
That's huge.
It is. Anthropic is fighting this in court, but from a strategic standpoint, having a public, protracted standoff with the U.S. government right before a $2 trillion IPO is a catastrophic level of friction.
So you have a highly visible CEO drawing the ire of the government by taking this rigid, principle-driven stance. But while he is holding the line publicly, Cami Clark is operating completely behind the scenes to manage the fileout.
Yes, she is.
According to the Journal, she is at the Allen & Co. conference in Sun Valley, the ultimate billionaire summer camp, having lunch with Ivanka Trump. She is chatting up Jared Kushner, whom Emma Day had actually approached earlier for investment.
Yeah, she is navigating the complex political reality that her husband's technological principles have created. The Journal reports that she's been telling political contacts that Anthropic's true mission is protecting America. She is actively lobbying them, making the case that the company isn't as woke as its detractors think it is.
It's a fascinating dynamic. I mean, she is basically acting like a political whip, or like a shadow diplomat for a tech empire. She's smoothing things over with the administration's inner circle over lunch while her husband fights them in court.
Precisely.
But it really begs the question, how does someone get into the position to wield this kind of unseen influence? Where did she come from?
Well, to understand how she operates in those corridors of power at Sun Valley, we really have to look back at her highly visible, incredibly chaotic early years of relentless hustling.
Okay, lay it out for me.
So she was born in Reno in 1979. Dropped out of architecture school. And then at the age of 20, she married a 64-year-old Reno architect named Waldemar Eckloff III.
Wait, a 44-year age gap at age 20?
Yes, and they divorced 3 years later. She then transitioned into the mortgage brokerage world, but the 2008 financial crisis decimated the housing market. By 2007, her apartment in San Francisco was foreclosed on, and by 2009, she had filed for personal bankruptcy.
Let me push back on this timeline a bit because, in traditional finance or corporate America, a personal bankruptcy in your late 20s is usually a massive red flag. It destroys your credibility. How does someone bounce from a personal bankruptcy straight into pitching luxury porn to high net worth investors?
Well, because she isn't operating in traditional corporate America, right? She's operating on the fringes of Silicon Valley. And in that ecosystem, the mechanics of status are entirely different. Failure isn't a permanent stain. It's often reframed as a valuable learning experience.
I see.
The culture rewards audacity, rapid iteration, and the ability to confidently pivot. And her next pivot around 2010 was a masterclass in that exact fearlessness and reinvention.
So what did she do?
She and a partner co-founded a company called Edis, which she billed as a women-focused, quote, revolutionary porn company.
And named after her grandmother.
Yeah.
Which is an incredible detail from the reporting.
It really is. The pitch to investors was literally free luxury porn. They were actively leveraging the vocabulary of tech startups for adult entertainment. Their tagline was intellectually promiscuous.
Intellectually promiscuous, wow.
Yeah. They ran a blog that featured posts titled Lady Porn Day and Orgasm Inc., alongside interviews with tech pundits. They even initiated a crowdfunding campaign aiming for $350,000 to produce their first 4 films, titled American Girl in Paris.
But how do you actually fund a venture like that right out of a foreclosure? Who is she pitching?
It was exactly that aggressive, unapologetic search for funding that put her in the same room as the global elite. She understood that capital isn't just found in pitch decks, it's found in social proximity. So in 2011, she attended the Digital Life Design Conference in Munich.
Just to give you listeners some context, the Munich Salon is not your average networking event. This is an incredibly exclusive gathering where global tech and media executives stop over on their way to Davos. Eric Schmidt, who was the CEO of Google at the time, was giving a keynote there.
Exactly. And it was at this specific conference that Clark met literary agent John Brockman.
Oh, boy.
Yeah. Thanks to the Epstein files released by the Justice Department, we have the exact quotes of how this played out. Brockman emails Jeffrey Epstein and says, quote, "You should connect for dinner with my girls, Cami and Michelle. They're in LA raising money for porn movie aimed at women's market." And
according to the DOJ files, Clark doesn't hesitate. She emails Epstein directly, writing, "Hello, Jeffrey. We would love to have dinner with you this evening." A week later, she follows up by sending him the actual film script, adding the note that it is, quote, "a little NSFW, not safe for work."
And her persistence is just remarkable. A year later, she emails Epstein again. Give the listener the exact exchange because it's wild.
Right, so she emails him, "We have the free luxury porn company. Does that ring a bell?" And Epstein's reply is, "Yes, a loud gong."
A loud gong.
Yeah. And when she pitches him for investment, the registered sex offender replies, "Can't do sex TV." I mean, I have to stop here because this is surreal. You have Jeffrey Epstein drawing a moral or brand line at investing in sex TV is incredibly jarring.
Absolutely.
But beyond that, How does an entrepreneur recover from a rejection by a global financier who basically says your business is too edgy for him?
Most people would be mortified. They would retreat. But this interaction reveals what she's really about. She didn't take the rejection personally. She just flipped the script and kept working the network. Immediately after Epstein says, "Can't do sex TV," she pivots and pitches him her next venture, which is a women's social dieting app.
Just like that, from luxury porn to a dieting app.
Just like that. By 2013, she was CEO of Female Algorithm Technologies. She didn't miss a beat.
It's the sheer resilience of the hustle. And it's that exact same reflex for relentless networking that ultimately wired her into the absolute center of the modern AI industry, right?
Oh, without a doubt. If you trace the timeline, her networking was incredibly strategic. She had a 3-year relationship with Google executive chairman Eric Schmidt, who actually invested in her health startup.
Okay.
And then in 2014, she starts dating Dario Amodei, who was then a Stanford postdoc in computational neuroscience, hanging out at his San Francisco group house with effective altruism figures.
Now, help me understand this culture clash. Because you have a group of people who are essentially monks of logic, deeply concerned with existential risk. And on the other side, you have Cami Clark, who has been pitching adult films and networking with global elites in Munich. How does she gain influence in a house full of EA purists?
Because she provided the exact mechanism they were missing, which was social capital. The EA community had immense intellectual capital, but they didn't inherently know how to navigate the traditional levers of global power. Cami Clark did.
She is essentially the human API of Silicon Valley. She connects massive, isolated servers of human intellect to the flow of global capital.
And that is exactly how it functioned. Look at her massive networking wins. She introduced her friend Mira Murati to OpenAI's Greg Brockman. Murati eventually became OpenAI's CTO.
So she directly connected the future CTO of OpenAI to the co-founder.
Yes. And she introduced Amodei to Eric Schmidt. Schmidt eventually becomes a key early backer for Anthropic in 2020.
But she isn't technically an employee. How does she try to formalize that power?
The journal points to February 2021, before she and Amodei were married. She pitched Schmidt a 40-page proposal for a venture fund she would run. It was an explicit bid to get equity and formalize her role at Anthropic. She called it the Mother of AGI Fund.
Okay, we need to pause on that name. Mother of AGI, Artificial General Intelligence. Claiming that title in a pitch deck is such a monumental, almost hubristic statement.
It is. She wasn't just asking for a financial vehicle. She was rhetorically positioning herself as the matriarch of this civilization-altering technology. But Anthropic's co-founders, importantly including Dario's sister Daniela, they rejected it. The proposal died, and she was denied a formal seat on the board.
Yet the lack of a formal title clearly hasn't diminished her actual influence.
Not at all.
To bring this all together for you listening, we are tracking the wild journey of a woman who went from a Tumblr aesthetic, pushing "let's make lots of money," to being the only +1 Dario Amodei brought to Prime Minister Modi's highly restricted AI meeting in New Delhi.
It's the ultimate evolution of influence. She transitioned from leaving a highly colorful, chaotic trail across the internet to becoming a shadow advisor who leaves almost no trace at all.
It really leaves you with something profound to ponder. When the definitive history of artificial intelligence is written, will it focus purely on the code and the microchips? Or will we realize that the future was actually shaped by invisible social networks, the unrecorded dinners, the deleted online profiles, and the shadow advisors who orchestrated the human elements behind the machines?
That's the real question we have to ask.
Thanks for listening. Follow us for daily insights into world affairs, and don't forget to like, comment, and share.